Imouto Ireba is an anime that aired half a decade ago when I was still an undiagnosed middle schooler, but before I got put on the FBI payroll. Its protagonist is the unrelentingly horny Itsuki, who writes self-insert fantasy light novels about sexy little sisters. His friends, as you would expect, treat him like a nut job.
A freak. Like me.
His friends, for the most part, are also in the light novel industry, and more successful than him to boot. Nayuta wants to be Itsuki's wife and keeps coming on to him. Miyako is the normal person in the group and used to show the audience perspective, since most people watching don't know too much about the light novel industry or creating work in general. Haruto is a guy who wants to be seen as gay on social media so that his series gets more attention. Pick unrelated. In a supporting role, you have Itsuki's editor, who is the consistent straight man throughout the series that won't tolerate Itsuki's shitty writing and non-existent work ethic. Technically, Miyako is a bit of a straight man, but she more or less gets used to the thing that our whack pack does, and genuinely doesn't find it irritating as much as the editor does the deeper down the rabbit hole she gets. Episode 1 starts off with a bait and switch. We see a scene from Itsuki's light novel that shows the little sister character waking up her brother naked, making an omelet from eggs she laid that day, and pouring a cup of freshly squeezed breast milk. His editor then chimes in to tell Itsuki to stop ripping dolphin pussy jelly out of Rick and Morty bongs. Itsuki tries to rationalize the plot and lack of focus in his story extremely fervently, like saying his sister laid eggs from her human ovaries that morning to cook an omelet, before his editor is fed up with it and rejects the manuscript. He has a get-together later with his friends where he pervs out a bit more before they decide to play a word game where the speaker sets up a mystery that uses wordplay as a misdirection tool. These components are used to make up episodes for the rest of the series, barring the tragic anime backstory. Itsuki experiences something that he can use for his next book, he acts perverted or dicks around for a bit, his editor gets mad, and we see a bit of the book he's writing. We do get a bit of insight on the other characters every now and then, but aside from a few lines, there's no real interpersonal drama between any of the characters. I really like these setups. However, by nature of the character complexities, it is very hard to show any progress of the arcs, and since there's no second season announced, there's not even the promise of them being completed. In fact, only one of the characters gets an arc completed in Season 1, if you can even call it a character arc, and the other gets progress, which, though good, is to be expected. Specifically because it's the main character. Even though all of the characters have arcs and goals, which some of them do make progress in, it is way more apt to call this a slice of life than an actual drama, or even a slow burn. We're not just seeing the highlights of these characters' journeys, we're seeing them react to the most simple things. And, though some of the most simplistic things can inspire the most auspicious works, most of the experiences that they have are just fond memories. If you like the first episode, chances are you'll like the rest of the show. The show enticed me so much because you can really tell that the author went through a lot of these experiences himself. In fact, they're a relatively accomplished author considering that his other work, Haganai, got an animated adaptation with 2 seasons and became ingrained in anime crack culture with the Big Brother scene. The things that the writers do in this show to get inspiration for how they want scenes to go are genuinely things that the author has heard of, if not, have done himself, albeit to varying levels of efficaciousness.
The truth is that I love you, Big Brother!
The word game, for example, can be extremely useful if you have a story with prophecies in it and you want to exercise your brain to word it precisely. The Okinawa trip is a great example of how a writer can be looking for a particular thing to base a scene around only to get inspiration from an extremely different experience they had when searching. This episode also highlights a big aspect of Itsuki's maturity, which is that he knows he makes schlock. Something that always pisses me off about other series is that they would have instances in which the characters say that something is amazing when it's fucking ass, like Mystical Ultima LP Legend. But here, any of the works that are said to be good aren't shown in any detail. It's only our main protagonist, who admits that he isn't even satisfied with his level of writing, who gets his works shown in the show. It does a good job of portraying its characters in general. Sure, Itsuki's a bit more out there, but we've always had an uber weirdo in our friend group, and making an established fact that he's able to enjoy and find pride in his work while also acknowledging that he isn't great makes him more endearing. Way too many aspiring writers and aspiring anythings think about the way that they can change the world with one thing and become a big shot without humbling themselves down and having a lot more immediate goals for their immediate wants. This is also a good contrast to Haruto, who can only write about something if he can shroud it in paraphernalia that will make it popular instead of something he can truly appreciate without any strings attached. Reflected by him acting gay for clout despite being arguably more milquetoast than Miyako. I have no problems with portraying the writers as having more baggage, since more creative people tend to also come from more traumatic backgrounds.
No one cares!
But there was one episode where a character has a backstory that was completely unnecessary, though it would have been more nice to see the stories that the others wrote to get some insight on how their past had affected them. The show is called A Sister's All You Need, not Drunken Sex Offenders, a case study. Itsuki is the acting force of the series, which means that he's the most important one that we see inside the head of. Seeing the other characters' reactions to how other people react to their work, like Haruto with his anime adaptation, is a lot more integral to the character. The end goal of the series, blatantly, is Itsuki finally making a work that he can say is good, while also being able to make it something he enjoys. His success will also be integral to the other characters' arcs because, though they look down on him right now, once he's finally able to reach a broader audience and be able to make all the capital that he wants, he will have proven that his methods for writing light novels, albeit unorthodox and arguably putrid at some points, are superior. Again, this is just the first season, which means that it's a fraction of the light novel, so for all I know it could crash and burn later on, or just meander and be bloated. I've talked mostly positively about the show, but there are some very prevalent flaws that I have to acknowledge.
You point your arm and turn your head and wait for the impact. This is a feeling we learn to live with in North America.
The animation is awful. A lot of the places they go to are just a few postcards with characters shaking or moving their faces. The scenes representing Itsuki's story are a bit better in some instances, but it's clear spectacle wasn't the priority for the animators as a whole. And fair enough, it's a bit more of a down-to-earth series. The locations and manga scenes could have been handled better. And don't go thinking that the atmosphere is enhanced by the music at all. It has less soul in it than a 5-minute crap video making a slingshot. It's just the sandal strap with a rubber band that has less tension than Mewtwo King's penis in it. They should have added some recipes to it, like a thermite ball or something. They're Russian, so there's no threat that they'll be tortured by the FBI into transforming their channel into YouTube Kids slime bake made to boost ad revenue until one of the beatings leaves mental scars on them, forcing them to record a video of why they're no longer in camera in front of their channel, right before their brain matter drips from their nose, now indistinguishable from the mucus, and reduced to its level of vulnerability to. They stage the accident, and once they've drained all the charisma from you, your friends will be next, until your channel is reduced to a deluge of pretty colors to mask the long-dead echo of an impassioned pulse, mere collateral in their eyes in comparison to a thermite tutorial. What better way is there to prevent people from getting answers to the wrong questions than making the respondent so repugnant? Stones and rotted foods aren't fit for it. I give the soundtrack 1 tubular bell out of 50. Can't wait for Mike Oldfield's funeral edition of the track. There was one piece of pretentious narration in episode 2 that said,
"No matter what you want in life, there's always someone else who already has it. And unfortunately, it usually means a whole lot less to that someone."
Like, yeah, thanks for lining out the conflict of the show for me. It definitely feels as though it's going through the motions of an adaptation without making any changes to visual storytelling or subtlety that the original work might have lacked. I probably wouldn't have experienced the series if it weren't an anime, but I can't shake off the idea that it would have been much better to have as a visual novel, and Silverlink or Yomi Hirisaka would have waited to gain money and properly adapt it. On top of that, this show itself being about writing and characters' progress being measured by the successive quality of light novels are not the most tangible goals that viewers can easily understand, aside from fan mail, which is only shown in one episode. Community interaction isn't even a given to those who already have made it in the industry and have an anime adaptation. Case in point, imouto ireba, whose Reddit board is extremely barren. Another potential reason to its failure is because it isn't as bombastic as Haganai. By being more grounded and less fantastical about the characters and scenarios, you strike a very small niche in the niche that already is a slice of life. This lack of insanity can be outlined as a problem when it comes to the popularity in the West. Even more than in the East, considering a lot of shows, which were not already big around this period of time, got their traction from anime crack videos. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, One Punch Man, Konosuba, Dragon Maid, Haganai. Aside from the first scene of the show, not a lot of content from it can be used to entice a larger audience. I like the concept behind whatever happened to X videos, but a lot of these questions have rather disappointing and obvious answers. Nobody found them interesting. I plan on reading the light novels and may possibly make a summary video or reviews of them, but I know that content on this is not going to do well, so though it's a bit optimistic, I'll make it a special once I reach monetization status. Till then, I'll just be having fun with whatever I make, and I hope you will too.